for joining us tonight. And thank you, Giovanna, for that wonderful introduction. I am excited to be here tonight and to bring you this panel where we will be speaking about the legal field, the different career paths in which you can take in the legal field, as well as speak about the different trajectories that you can take to becoming an attorney. When I was invited to speak on this panel, I was very excited to not only be able to share my journey to becoming an attorney, but I wanted to bring different perspectives by inviting a few of my colleagues and friends to also speak about their journey, give you a few tips of how you yourself can start to prepare and also adequately be ready to become an attorney if that is what you desire. So without further ado, we will begin this panel. And the structure of the panel is going to be a little different from what you're normally used to. I am going to be a moderator, but I will also be participating in the panel. So it's going to be more of a conversation where I will also be answering some of the questions so that you can also see my trajectory from when I graduated from SUNY Oswego. So the panelists that will be joining me tonight are Naftali Azor. I will have them introduce themselves, but we have Naftali Azor present, Iman Kyler, Carl Trotnas, and Christian Lake. And we will begin the panel by having each of the individuals introduce themselves by stating their name, where they currently reside, who they work for, and what area of law that they practice. So I will start with having Carl Trotnas introduce himself.
Hi, hello everyone. My name is Carl Trotnas. I currently reside in the state of New York, more specifically in Queens. I work for the Legal Aid Society. My practice is also in Queens, and I practice criminal defense.
Hi, Carl. Thank you for joining us tonight. Next, we will have Iman Kyler introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Iman Kyler. I currently reside in Washington, D.C. I work for law firm Skadden Arps, and I practice tax law, and I'm happy to be here.
Hi, Iman. Thank you for joining us tonight. Next, we have Christian Lake.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Christian Lake. I live in Jacksonville, Florida. I work for a law firm called Lindell, Farson, and Zabuni. It's a small firm, and we practice business litigation and litigation of other civil matters as well.
Hi, Christian. Thank you for joining us tonight. Next, we have Naftali Azor.
Hi, everyone. I'm Naftali Azor. I reside in Jacksonville, Florida. I currently work at Sawfield and Shad. It is an insurance defense firm.
Hi, Naftali. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. And as Giovanna stated, I am an assistant district attorney in Brooklyn, New York. I am, currently a prosecutor in Brooklyn. So we will start with a few questions. I will have Christian answer this question, and then we'll go around and have everyone answer as well. Can you provide a brief description of a typical day at work for you, Christian?
Sure. Yeah, I can try to do that. So my typical day, I try to get in the office around 8:30 or so, and usually the first hour or so of my day is a lot of administrative stuff. As a private practice attorney, I have to keep track of my billable hours, and so most of the time at the beginning of the day, I enter my hours from the day before and submit all of that, and then I just kind of get in, meet with my paralegal. Most mornings, we discuss where things stand on certain cases, what's the priority for the day, and then I get going. Some days I spend all day on just one client matter, drafting a complaint, preparing for a hearing. Other days I can touch on 12 to 15 clients in a day, just a bunch of little things here and there that all need to be attended to before the day is done. I normally work, I don't have insane hours for private practice. I work from 8:30 to anywhere from 5:30 to 6:30. And that's pretty standard for me. And also, just before I finish, hearings are also a portion. I don't just prepare for things. I actually have hearings in court now. It's virtual court, but various hearings on anything from initial matters all the way through trial. I handle that as well.
Okay. And Iman, can you tell us what a typical day looks like for you in the office?
Yeah, so for me, I feel like all of my days are very unpredictable, to be honest. So I don't really have a standard day. And I think that's because of the type of work that I do. Typically, a lot of tax attorneys either do transactional tax or controversy tax. And I feel like I'm one of those people that's still doing both right now. So it just depends on what I'm working on. To give you an example, right now I was working on a deal that was closing. So all of my days, I think like for the past 2-3 weeks, was focused on that deal. So my days was very unpredictable. For instance, like certain issues come up with the agreement. So we need to have a call at 9 p.m. because that matter could really impact the whole deal and that deal might not go through. But some weeks, the days that I'm like mainly working on my controversy matters, those usually have longer deadlines. So for instance, there was like a motion that I was working on and that's not due to be filed 3 weeks, 4 weeks from now. So those days, my days are a little bit calmer. I don't have that many calls. So my day really just depends on what project I'm on. And I think that's really important because each attorney's day looks very different depending on what type of law you do. But yeah, that's it for me.
Naftali, how about you? What does a typical day looks like for you?
Well, my day is not as crazy as Iman's. Mine's closer to what Christian was saying, where I start my day reading my emails. I sort of figure out what the priorities are for the week or the day, and then go from there. Few times there'll be fires, of course, that you have to put out, things or do that you have to submit. But otherwise, it's basically preparing for hearings, handling discovery by sending questions and things like that to opposing counsel, then attending depositions and hearings and things like that.
And call?
I guess my day is probably like a mix of what the earlier panelists mentioned. It can be unpredictable sometimes because my type of practice is very like client centered, and everyone else is as well, but a lot of times like clients will call me throughout the day, and because of whatever current issue that they have, maybe it's an emergency and that might impact whatever plan that I did have for the day. Beyond that, I do spend a lot of time in court, whether it be like arraignments, which is like representing clients the first time before they appear before a judge, or whether it be on just any other matter, as a whatever their case requires during that time. And then when I'm not in court, I'm usually at the office. Right now, I'm working from home because it's remote situations. But I'm working on motions, or I'm working on preparing for hearings or preparing for possible trials.
Thank you. I will say this, I am very envious of Christian and Naftali because I, just as Iman and Carl, my day is very unpredictable and very long as an assistant district attorney, especially because I do domestic violence and elder abuse cases, is very victim centered. So there's not one day that looks the same for me, because you can have a list, you start your day, you have a to-do list, which I like to have. I like to have some sort of plan of how I would like to attack my day. However, it never pans out to be what I plan or imagine the day to be, because a lot of things pop up. You have a complaining witness who contacts you, the defendant is violating an order of protection, so you have to call the defense counsel, or defense counsel is calling you because they would like for you to address express a certain concern regarding a case, so you have to look into it. You have to go to court for virtual appearances, motions that needs to be written and addressed. So there's a lot of different hats that I wear on my day-to-day, and a lot of fires that I often have to put out as an assistant district attorney. But I will also say that although it is very busy, I enjoy, the spontaneity of my position as an assistant district attorney. So there's no, one day or similar days for me in the office. And as you guys will see that each and every one of us, our days and our duties, although can be similar in some ways, is not the same. Your job will vary and your duties will vary based on the type of law that you practice. So what would you say is the most challenging aspect of being an attorney, particularly an attorney in the area that you practice? Anyone can start that question.
I'll start since I ended. So for me, particularly as a criminal defense attorney, I think, especially like a lot of people who tend to want to be attorneys, we tend to have like an adversarial type nature. And for me, like I really hate losing. So oftentimes, if I'm making like an argument that I feel, really strong about, whether it's like in motion or an oral argument, and then like I don't get the result that I thought I should have gotten, I tend to find that very difficult. Currently, right now, I think another problem that is like up there too as well is, practicing remotely, because a lot of the clients that I do serve are from the underserved communities. They are the indigent, and a lot of my clients don't have access to technology. So they don't have like laptops, they don't have cell phones, some of them live in shelters. And because of that, like it makes it really hard for them to make their court appearances. And right now we're only practicing remotely. So and then practicing remotely has like some other issues too, because things that could have been resolved in like, let's say like a few minutes or, a day or two or so, it's stretched out because like there are like so many more steps that you have to take. So those are the two things that I would say.
For me, I will probably say balancing my personal life and work. I think I'm one of those people that if I say I'm going to do something, I really want to do a really good job, put in the hours, but sometimes it's really difficult to manage that with my personal life, spending time with my family and being home and also trying to be like the best lawyer that I could be. I will say that's probably the hardest part for me. Another thing too would be being a tax attorney. The learning curve is very steep. So that's also tough. I think it's one of those areas where the more you do it, the more, you gain those skills. So yeah, those are the two things that I would say for me are a little bit tough.
Christian or Naftali?
I can go. For me, in private practice, billing by the hour, it's tough. I'm the most junior attorney in my office, and therefore I get a lot of the smaller cases. And it's tough because much like Call, I like to go full bore at something. I'm competitive. I like to win. But for a client where it's a dispute that might just be, a few $1,000s, which is a lot of money for that person. But for me, I have to be mindful of how I bill and the work that I put in. So I have to find out how I can creatively serve the best interest of that client without spending all my time and therefore the client's money on something and ultimately resulting in, the client owing me more money than the total amount of the dispute. And so that's really tough for me to find that middle line of how I can efficiently, do work knowing that there's stuff, that I could be doing additionally, but it just doesn't make sense for this particular client. And that's tough.
I'll add to the billable hours. That's also what I believe is the hardest part of my job currently, especially since I just started with the private practice. I used to be a prosecutor, used to work in the same office as Barbara, and it's the best thing not to have to, enter all your time somewhere. We go and we put out all the fires and then we go home and we work the day. But now it's different. Now you gotta account for every minute or fraction of it. Another thing that I would say is a bit challenging, and I think it might be for just about every lawyer out there, is you're trusted to know everything, even when you might not. And so you have to figure out how to get the answer and do your job right. And I think the hardest part is dealing with the emotions that the people who entrust you with their cases, without letting it cloud your judgment. And it was the same as when I was a prosecutor, and it's the same here when I'm basically representing companies. It's basically figure out a way to balance the emotions that come with the cases, all the while making sure that you're giving the proper advice.
Yeah, certainly. I definitely will say what's difficult for me as an assistant district attorney, particularly dealing with a very trauma intense field, is learning to separate myself from the cases and the facts that I encounter in my cases. Learning to not internalize the trauma. You know, you encounter people who are being physically, emotionally, and mentally abused by their partners. I also deal with elderly abuse cases where they're being abused by their children. Just last week, I had to put in a case in a grand jury of an elderly man who his son attempted to kill him. And it was just really sad to see that case, like, someone who, you've raised this person and now you have to testify against him. And he was really sad about that. So myself learning to not, let my emotions get involved in the cases, being as impartial as possible. And then also learning to separate myself. Like when I'm done with work, I'm not thinking about the facts of my cases, and being intentional about self-care and my mental health as well. I feel like that's some of the most challenging parts of the job, is learning to separate myself from the different cases. Next, I will say, can you provide, when did you decide to become an attorney, and why did you decide to become an attorney? I will start with Christian.
Yeah, for me, I decided I wanted to be an attorney when I was a sophomore in high school. For me, it kind of stemmed originally from a love of politics from a relatively young age. I was always intrigued by it. I wanted to get involved in the political realm. And also, I always enjoyed, it was odd, I was growing up, I really loved reading contracts. That makes me like the biggest nerd out there. But I would always love reading them, try to find what little things in there that someone might not know about. So you couple those two things together. And I know that a lot of successful politicians are attorneys. And then I just really enjoyed actually getting into the nuts and bolts of a contract. And I figured, why not go into a career that allows me to do that on a daily basis? So it's a two-pronged passion that drew me to law school and to become an attorney.
Iman, how about you? When did you decide to become an attorney, and why?
I think I've always knew that I wanted to be an attorney ever since I was super young. I really love reading, and I always thought I needed to find something productive to do as an adult. You guys don't know this, but I was born in Ethiopia and I moved to America when I was 11. So I think my mom was very like, we're going to America for a reason, for a better life. And that always stuck to me. And I feel like for some reason, immigrants, it's either a doctor, engineer, or lawyer. So those were my three viable options. And I don't like science that much. I considered engineering because I do like numbers, but ultimately I decided, okay, let's stick with being an attorney. And that's how I got to that decision.
Would anyone else like to share?
I'll share. I'm pretty sure I decided to be a lawyer before I even knew it, based on what was poured into me as an immigrant child, as Iman was saying. If you like to read and you talk too much, then you're bound to be a lawyer. And that was me. But I think I probably fully decided and knew what I was getting myself into in college. When I volunteered with the Price of Life campaign, that was a campaign against human trafficking. And I met a few lawyers there, and I kind of wanted to be them. I wanted to make the same level of difference that they were making on a daily basis. And so I went from there and found myself here.
Carl, would you like to share?
Yeah, similarly to the other immigrants here, my parents also gave me like, those top three, like you're either gonna be like a lawyer, a doctor, or an engineer. And like naturally, I was also like a kid who spoke a lot. So my mom used to always call me an avocat impossible, and in Creole, it's just like the impossible lawyer. So ever since I was like, a kid, like I had like this idea in my mind that, this was something that I wanted to do. Of course, like, I didn't necessarily stick to that. As you grow, like there are, different interests that you have. But when I was around 15, I started, having like, these few run-ins with like police officers. And, I didn't get arrested or anything of that nature, but like, there were like certain things that happened to me that caused some type of trauma. And I knew like instead of like being a victim of that situation or that scenario, I wanted to be someone who got empowered from that, and then ended up getting like these abilities where I would be able to defend myself in future situations. And so oftentimes we say, okay, well, let's wait for Superman. But for me, I thought, well, why not be my own Superman? And so being like a criminal defense attorney allows me to accomplish that.
Christian?
Yes.
I think Christian answered
Oh, Christian.
already.
Okay. Okay. So provide a brief summary of your trajectory of becoming an attorney. What did your journey look like? And we will start from college, like, from college up until now, what did your path look like?
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and start. So I went to college in Florida. I went to Florida State for undergrad. I majored in finance. And when I was in college, I was very involved in different student activities and things like that. And one of the main reasons why I decided to be involved and really just, do community service in college was because, like I said, I was a very first generation student. I honestly did not know a lot of things. So for me, that was a way for me to get information, network, and meet people. Right after college, I graduated in 2014 with a business degree. I ended up getting a job in Dallas, Texas, doing finance work. So after college, I moved to Dallas. Interestingly, before I moved to Dallas, the first time I ever visited Dallas was for my interview. And for me, I'm like, hey, it's a job. They're planning to pay me. I'm definitely moving. So I moved there. At that time, I already was preparing for law school, but another reason why I decided to take the job, to be honest, was law school is really expensive. So I needed to have a plan. So I figured, hey, I'm going to work a little bit, save up my money. That way I have sufficient funds to study for the Lsat, just have more resources. So that was a part of my plan. So I always knew I was going to go to law school, but I'm just going to work a little bit. So I moved to Dallas. I loved Texas. I had a really good time, liked my job. While I was working, I took the Lsat and then started applying to law school during my year then. I got admitted to GW, and I knew that I was gonna, move to DC. I always wanted to live in DC or, not so much New York, but somewhere big. Like I wanted to be in a big city. No offense to the New Yorkers. I'm just a small city girl. And then after taking the LSAT, I applied. I remember I applied very early on, I think like September, October, because I heard that the earlier you apply, your chances are better. I'm very risk averse, so I applied early. One thing that really helped me in my application process was just networking. I would literally reach out to alums from my college that, were in law school, or just people that I guess like people that I saw had a career that I wanted. And just saying, hey, like, I'm interested in this. Can you help me? Like, or do you have any tips? And just doing that due diligence myself. And then I started law school after a year in 2015. While in law school, I immediately gravitated towards tax. Like I said, I was a business major. I love numbers, although tax law really has nothing to do with numbers. But so then right after law school, I did get, I think, Barb, you're going to get to this, so I'm going to let you get to that. But that's
about it.
Okay, yeah. So after law school, I graduated in 2018. And being a professional student, I found a way to continue that journey. And I ended up getting what's called a tax LLM, which is a master's in taxation law. It's very uncommon. A lot of people don't get it. And honestly, I don't even think it's that necessary unless you do tax. But for me, it was just a way to really, dive deep in that subject. I was really interested in it. And I went to Georgetown, which is right across from GW. Another reason why I decided to get my LLM was I got a scholarship for it. I'm very cheap. So if I didn't get the funds, I probably would not have attended. So another tip that I would give you guys is really look into scholarships. They are out there. And especially if you apply early, there are ways to really fund your legal education. And if you want tips or anything like that, do not hesitate to reach out to me. I'm always happy to talk about the process, like what I did, what was helpful. So then I graduated in 2019 with my master's in taxation. I clerked for a year at the United States Tax Court. And then this May, I started my job at the firm that I'm currently at.
Thank you for sharing, Ima. And I also say that I do see the questions in the chat. I am going to leave some time in the end so that we can also answer those questions. Some of the questions I do have here and plan on asking, but if there's anything that we don't address, I will leave some time in the end so that we can all answer those questions as well. Carl, would you like to share your journey from college very briefly? What did your trajectory look like from college up until now?
Okay. Yeah, just to keep it brief and short, I went to City College for my undergrad. I double majored. I was honors psych as well as honors in legal studies. Scan Arms was the one who pretty much paid for my schooling at the time, and then we also had like access to mentors and people who helped us prepare for LSATs. So I definitely, as Iman was saying, I definitely took advantage of that, and started practicing networking at that time, and spoke to as many attorneys as I could, so that I could pretty much learn how to go about my trajectory. While I was in undergrad, I also did other internships. I did mock trial a lot because I was interested in criminal defense. So I did mock trial for, I want to say, like about 3 years. I also interned at the Attorney General's office. I interned at the Harlem Youth Law and Justice Center, and I spent time at Skadden too. So then after that, I went to I guess I started law school maybe a year after I graduated from undergrad. I did take a year off, but during that year off, I didn't do anything significant. I just worked and I studied for the LSAT. And then in law school, I did the only other activity I did. Well, I did criminal defense clinic, because I knew I wanted to be an attorney in that practice. So it made sense for me to get the practical experience while I was in law school, so that I felt like it would make like the transition a lot easier when I started working. I also did BALSA too. I was the secretary of BALSA for about 2 years. And then after law school, I took the bar exam, and I'm here.
And Christian, what did your trajectory look like very briefly?
Yeah, so just very briefly, I went to college at the University of Florida. I was a political science major that pretty much pigeonholed me into being an attorney. I love politics, but the degree in and of itself, without more to it, doesn't have a lot of practical application, at least outside of like local politics. And that was my understanding. And so I did that with the sole intent of going to law school. I was involved. I did an internship at the Student Legal Center for a semester, and that was a very good experience. I actually My trajectory, I would say I slacked a bit in college. I wasn't as involved in things as maybe other people should be if they're aspiring for law school. I was fortunate to do well in my classes, but if I had it all to do again, I would say I would be more involved with, internships and getting involved in, like Carl was saying, mock trial, things like that. I just kind of coasted my way through and was fortunate to still be able to go to a great law school. But I would say, mine is not the ideal path to follow. I'd say that.
Did you go straight through?
Yeah, I did. I went straight through, graduated in 2015, went to law school right thereafter. So.
And Naftali, really briefly, what did yours look like?
So I in college, I did a lot of internships. I knew I wanted to be a human rights attorney. So I did the Attorney General's office. I did human rights campaigns just to prepare myself. Then I also really started networking in college. So I was meeting a lot of lawyers and they all kept telling me, do not go to law school until and unless you're very sure that's what you want to do. And I took it to heart. I started speaking to everyone I could find, every type of lawyer I could find, going to random networking events, just so I could get an insight. Then I realized that I wasn't sure after graduation, so I took time off and decided to work for law firms. I ended up working for an employment law firm in the city. I then worked for a solo practitioner and was trusted with so much that I thought if I could basically do the job for him and have him sign it, then I might as well just go and do it myself. So I went to law school after that. In law school, I think is probably when I finally looked up how much money human rights attorneys actually made and decided that it wasn't for me because I had loans. So I then heard about the DA's office and the DA at the time, Ken Thompson, and heard about all the stuff that he was doing to change the community and thought, you know what, that would be the job for me. And that's how I became a prosecutor and decided to move out of New York. And now I'm in Florida doing insurance defense work for a while.
Yeah, I think some of the takeaways from the different trajectories that we've heard here is that there are different paths to becoming an attorney. There's not one set way to becoming an attorney. Obviously, there's the foundational requirements, taking the Lsat, applying to law school, and then taking the bar exam so that you can become a licensed attorney. But that there are different paths, different activities in which you can do in order to become an attorney. But I would say the important takeaway is to start networking now, get involved in as much as possible, whatever interests you, network, speak to different individuals in the fields that you're interested in. If it's tax law, prosecutor, defense attorney, like do what you're doing now, attending different panels so that you can start to prepare and get an idea of what it's like to be an attorney, as well as starting to set yourself apart for the application process for law school, because getting into law school is very competitive. So you want to make sure that you are the best candidate as possible. For me, I would say while I was at Oswego, I definitely did a lot, probably too much. I was all over. I had a lot of mentors. I am also a first generation college student, and so I didn't know much. So I just gravitated to whatever interests me and tried to kind of figure out what I like and what I did not like by doing them. So I would try, like McNair Scholar, it was a professor who recommended me participating in the program. I participated in it and I realized, I don't think I want to do PhD and a Juris Doctor degree. I'm just going to be an attorney and focus on that. So you don't know what you like or what you don't like until you've tried it. Additionally, don't be afraid to seek the opportunities out as well. One of the things that I did while I was at Oswego is intern at the Oswego County State Attorney's Office. And the way I got that internship is we have an attorney on campus. I don't know if they still do that now, but they have it on campus. And I just walked into his office and I said, hi, I want to be an attorney in the future. Is there any way I can work with you? And he was like, okay, come to my office, bring your resume on Monday. And I did that and I got the internship for the summer. So look for opportunities that you can create for yourself. So how would you guys say law school differ from college? What is the big difference?
Probably the work. It's definitely way more rigorous. I will honestly say that the 3 years in law school were definitely some of the toughest 3 years, at least as far as school is concerned. One thing that I did not realize until I got to law school, you have one exam, and that one exam for that class determines your grade for the whole semester. That does not make sense to me. It just doesn't. So I definitely say the work. That's one difference. And then two is you just don't have as much time. Like each class is very consuming. So definitely time challenging. But I will say that one thing that I'm very grateful about law school is I did meet some of my really closest friends in law school. I met some really, really good people. And law school also really opens up your mind to different things, from like critical thinking skills, writing, advocating for yourself, being able to say, like, I deserve this because of, So overall, I will say that I'm definitely glad I went to law school, but it's definitely a lot of work. Mm-hmm. So if you want to take a break before, do not feel any pressure to just, go through. I always say I wish I took 2 to 3 years. I have a lot of friends. Actually, one of the attorneys in my firm, he took like a 10-year break before law school, had a whole different career, like traveled all over the world. And then finally was like, okay, time to settle down. I'm going to go to law school and be an adult. And that's also okay. So kind of like what Barb said, do not be scared to pave your own path, whatever that looks like. Do not feel like you have to do what everyone else does.
Rock took some time off. I remember reading from his book, he took some time off, and he stated actually he felt like that's what helped him doing so well and performing so well in Harvard Law School, is the fact that he was so much more mature in the experience that he had in Chicago. So yeah, don't be afraid to take some time off. Don't feel pressured to go straight through. So I agree with Iman. Yeah. Anyone else want to share? What is the difference? What is the main difference between law school and college? Well, I will say that aside from the work, like Iman said, it's the structure. Like Iman states, law school is very, very competitive. It's like Hunger Games. Think of it that way. We're graded on a curve. And so you can have, you can do very well on an exam, but still end up getting a B, because there's a certain curve. There's a certain amount of people that can get an A in the class, a certain amount of people that could get a B or a C. And so that makes it difficult, because no matter how hard you work, you may still end up, ending up in a lower part of the curve, because it's someone else who just ended up doing much better, or that fell in that curve and they couldn't give another A because there's a certain amount that they could give. So I think that makes it difficult, because sometimes you feel like no matter how hard I'm working, I'm still, doing subpar. So that can be challenging as well. The Socratic method can be daunting your first year, when the professor can literally spend 15 minutes with just you, asking you very direct, pointed questions on assignment that he gave, like that 50-page reading that each in your 5-year classes gave you to do the day before. You didn't get through it, but your professor decided today's the day he is going to call you and ask you questions after questions for 15 minutes. And you want to be ready. You don't want to embarrass yourself in front of 150 people because you don't know the answer. So I feel like that sometimes can be challenging as well. But I will say, while the first year is challenging, you get a hang of it, and then you start to find your own rhythm. When you're not focused on what the rest of the class is doing, or not focusing on what everyone else is telling you to do, and you find your own rhythm, that's when you do well. So if there's anything I would say is start to figure out what is your study style right now. If you're someone that studies in the morning, do that in law school. If you're someone that studies more and process things at night, do that in law school. Don't change it just because your peers are stating that's what you have to do, because once you start following what everyone else is saying and not sticking to what is good for you, that's when you start to find yourself doing subpar work and not performing at your best level. So that would be the main difference between law school and college. And also as well, I know there's going to be a lot of political science majors. Like, I think it's natural sometimes, you think I want to go to law school, so I'm going to be a political science major. And just because right now you're writing a lot of papers and research, it is not the same. Legal writing is very, very different from regular research papers that you're doing in college right now. So you're just going to have to be open to learning and basically forgetting everything that you knew in college. And be prepared to learn how to think and write like an attorney. And so the next question that I have is, what was the most challenging aspect of law school? And I think this is what Stephanie Lamb asked in a group here, so I'm going to phrase it as she stated, is, were there times for any of you while you were pursuing your law degree that you got overwhelmed or felt defeated? Any tips to some of our future lawyers in the group on how to persevere or push forward during times of adversity?
I think to answer Stephanie's question, I would say, like, remembering your why. I think that's like the driving motivation. I know for me, that's really what worked, because a lot of times, like, when you're reading these things, maybe Christian is like the one who, like, enjoys like reading contracts, but a lot of people going into law school, like, reading like any type of legal document, whether it be like a contract or a treatise or any other type of format, it's not the most interesting piece of reading, right? And so sometimes, like, you really do need to remember like why you did come to law school. I know for me, I wanted to make a difference. And so every time, like, I wanted to give up, I'm like, okay, I know the people who are depending on me back in my community, or the things that I was really motivated by, and I said, like, this is what's going to carry me. And then sometimes, like, your why changes, because on some days it wasn't enough. And what was enough was remembering, okay, I got this big loan that's like, it's very high. I'm like, look, if I don't get through these classes, if I don't pass, if I don't graduate, I'm still gonna have this loan. So you know what? I might as well study. I might as well do what I have to do. So I think, like, remembering your why definitely helps you.
Mm-hmm.
And I just to clarify, I didn't like reading contracts as much after started having to read out the Horn books. But I think, to kind of piggyback off what Carl was just saying, 1L for me when the grades came in, it was a kick in the gut, and I actually had a guidance counselor, career counselor, tell me I should consider dropping out of law school. And that was an employee of the school. So that was really tough. I didn't really know what to do with that. And kind of to dovetail, remembering the why, for me, it was stepping outside of the walls, because law school, I don't know how it's going to look or how it looks right now with COVID, but when we were at law school, you're in this building and it can be confining. You can spend hours a day in the library. You can be sun up, sun down without much effort at all. Like, that's what everyone does. You're in there, you're just studying away every day, and the walls just confine you. And I think sometimes stepping outside of that, both mentally and physically, is really important, and reminding yourself of what brought you here. Like what Carl was just saying, like, what brought you here? What are you striving for? Because if you get caught up in, okay, I have to maintain X GPA, like what Barb was saying, only a certain number of people can get that grade. And you might be one of the people to do it. And congratulations if you are, that's phenomenal. And unfortunately, if you're not, you have to find a way to keep persevering, because there's success out there. You just have to keep fighting towards it, even if people within your own school are telling you to drop out.
One thing I'll add, I think for me, is just definitely my faith. I always feel like God brought me this far. He's not going to let me down now. So similar to Christian, I had a semester that also didn't go as well as I wanted. And law school is very competitive. And I remember just I was like, okay, this is not good. Like, I need a plan. And my plan was, okay, this semester didn't go well, but you know what? Next time I'm going to correct the errors that I, did this semester and just keep on going. And I think one of the key themes of my life has been just keep on going. Tomorrow is a different day, and things always have a way of working out. And I think, especially when you, at least for me, like younger me was always just freaking out about everything. And now I look back and I'm like, oh my God, like that was not even that bad, So just, I guess, like, if I would summarize it, is just keep on going, have your faith. And honestly, I honestly believe like anyone could be a lawyer, and you could do it at a high level. You could go to wherever you want to do it. If you want to go work at the best nonprofit organization, if you want to go be a clerk, whatever it is that you want to do, if you set your mind to it, I believe you could do it.
Absolutely. I would just agree with everyone, and also add that a few times in law school that I could remember sitting here where I would, get down on myself and say, oh my God, I don't think I can do it, is because I was trying to compare myself to other people. And if you just remember who you are, and you remember where you come from, what you want, and why you're there, I think I had to remind myself I was smart enough to make it through college. I was smart enough to make it in a new country and learn a new language. I was smart enough to do so many things. Law school basically almost pales in comparison to learning and readapting to a new culture. So granted, law school is very, very difficult, but it's still, if you can make it through a lot of the things you've had to overcome to make it to law school, if you just remember that, you'll be able to get yourself through it.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with everyone on the panel. And to be completely transparent, my first semester of law school was probably the most difficult time of my entire life. And I say that because I literally felt like I was suffering from imposter syndrome. Actually, for my first year of law school, I felt like I was suffering from imposter syndrome. I really felt like I didn't belong here. How did I even get here? Oh my God, I'm gonna be exposed. I don't even understand some of these words that this professor is using. So I remember having moments like that, just like being so nervous that my professor cold called me. The Socratic method that I'll mention is like the professor called me and asked me a question, and I did not know. And all of a sudden, like my Haitian accent came out, and half Creole, half English words is coming out of my mouth, just panicking in my head, panicking. It is not because I was incapable. It is not because I did not really belong there. It is because I was truly in my head telling myself, comparing myself to the others around me, that I couldn't do it. But like Naftali said, once I remembered who I am, like being able to come to this country, learning a new language, assimilate to a new culture, being the first in my family to go to college, being the first in my family to go to law school and graduate from law school, I can do it. And remembering and repeating that to myself definitely helped me. Faith, like Iman said, that was the center. That was my anchor. On Sundays, no matter what assignments that was going on, I was with my textbooks heading straight to church because I needed the pick me up that I like. It may not be that you don't believe in God or anything else. You just have to have something to anchor you, to help keep you going. And the other thing for me is I'm very, very family oriented. So my mom I was calling her, my sister's friend, just crying, and them telling me it's gonna be okay. Just get through it. You're just gonna need people who's gonna cheer you on when you feel like I can no longer do this. You just need other people that believes in you in the moment that you're just like, yeah, this might not be it. Maybe I made a mistake. Like I'm gonna be exposed, and you need people to say no. No, you've done this. I've seen you do it, so you can continue to do it. So make sure you have something that you believe in that can help you stay anchored. Make sure that you have a good support system, and remember who you are. I think in law school will have you really doubt yourself, your capabilities. But like Naftali said, remember who you are. You made it through college and you took the LSAT. All of those things are not easy. So if you remember those things, you'll do just fine. Um, the next question that I have is, how can college students adequately start to prepare for law school? What can they do now so that they can be the best candidates as possible?
I will probably say research, research, research. And the only reason why I say that is law school is not what you think. I remember I used to think, okay, I'm going to become a lawyer. I'm going to be a millionaire. I'm going to have a farm, like that is not what law school is. And honestly, the best thing you could do for yourself is just research it, talk to people, whether it's like, for instance, if you're interested in insurance law, or if you're interested in becoming a person, whatever you think you might want to do, talk to people who have done it. And then also just look into the details of law school. How much is GW? How much is, if you want to go to law school in New York, how much is it? How do people pay for it? So just having a game plan. And I think the sooner you start, the better. I'll give you guys an example. I had somebody reach out to me that was interested in law school. I feel like for me, I'm willing to talk to anyone because I feel like a lot of people did that for me. And I think it's my responsibility to pay it forward. And I was talking to someone about the whole law school process, what it is. And after talking to me, he was like, okay, maybe this is not for me. Let me just, explore it more. And that's also okay. I think when you're young, that is what your early years are for, to explore different educational opportunities, figure out what you want to do. After researching it, if you say, hey, you know what, this doesn't seem like my cup of tea, maybe I want to go, do art, that's okay. So I will definitely say just research, talk to a lot of people. I think by Barbara graciously hosting this panel, you now have access to 5 attorneys. So reach out to us and use us as a tool to gauge if this is something you're interested in. And of course, if you know that this is what you want to do, talk to us too. We could definitely tell you like, hey, these are some resources for you. So my one advice is just research. Did not go into this blindly. Just make sure you have a game plan. And I think that will save you a lot of time and just really guide you to the right direction.
I think if you've been listening, the one thing that you'll hear us sort of that permeates through all of our complaint will be our loans. So I would say whatever it is that your major is right now, do very well. Like try to do your best, get the best grades you can get. Because in addition to networking and doing all the research that Iman suggested, your grades are what's gonna get you the money that you need. You're not gonna get scholarships if you don't have good grades. And no one like loans. I'll attest to that. I don't like loans at all. So just do very well in all your classes. It'll help you get all the scholarships you might need.
Yeah, in addition to doing research, depending what level or where you are in your undergrad, I think like, doing internships is something that is very beneficial because not only do you get to, just do the reading, but you actually have like the experience of being in that practice and seeing what a lawyer does in their day to day. And I think like, sometimes like when you do that, it allows you to definitively know whether or not this is like an area of law that you want to be in. Even though I'm a criminal defense attorney, when I was in law school, I did intern at the Queens District Attorney's Office, and it was something that I wanted to try out. And after my experiences there, I realized, okay, well, it's not for me. It's not the best place for me. And I also have other experiences in different types of legal practices. And doing that allows you to just like learn more about yourself, because you might read something and say, okay, well, that sounds like me. And then when you get there and you see what it actually looks like, you're like, let me stay far away from this. So I would say if you can, try to do some internships.
Right. I will also add to that by saying to also be open-minded. It's great, like if you have mentors, it's great if you do internships, but if you're just so set on one path, you will miss out on certain opportunities. I know for me, like I've always wanted to be an attorney ever since I was young. And so at first I was like, oh, I'm gonna go straight through undergrad. I don't have no time to waste. I gotta go here and be a badass attorney. I had a mentor who's like, you know what, take some time off. Take some time off, explore some new things, go, have certain experiences and make sure that's what you want to do. I think that Naftali also said the same thing. And I think a lot of attorneys will give the same advice. Just like take some time to really make sure that that's what you want to do, because it is not an easy path. It is a very rewarding path, both, personally and professionally, but it's not an easy path. So you want to make sure that it's exactly what you want to do. I didn't at first want to go live in China for a year. Like I never really dreamt of doing that, but my mentor did it. And then I spoke to one of my professors, actually Professor Workington. I don't know if he still works there in the political science department, but he helped me with that application. He helped me do the research, and me being open-minded, that was something else I was able to add on my application that set me apart from my colleagues and my counterparts. And that's one thing law school is looking at. Like, even if you don't do so well in your classes, you want to make sure you're a well-rounded applicant. Where you fall short, make sure in other areas you make up for it. And so I would say, any advice on how to prepare for the LSAT, the law school admission test, as that is their first step, from college and, applying to law school?
I'll say invest in a class. I remember when I took them, they were like $2,000. And to me, I was like, oh my God, that is so much money. And I took the LSAT the first time without a class. Trust me, I took the class a second time. So I think it's definitely worth it. And I think you have to think of it as an investment. Law school is really, really expensive. And if you do really well on the LSAT, you could get that money back by getting a lot of scholarship. So that was my calculus behind it. And then the second thing I would say is, after you pay for the class, take it very seriously. I dedicated a lot of time and energy to it. And then the third thing I'll say is, I think when I took it, the LSAT was, there were about 56 or 60 past LSAT tests. Try to take as much as you can. That really, because I feel like the LSAT, I guess this is getting into more of the substantive part of the LSAT. It's one of those things, the more you do, the better you get. So to summarize, pay for the LSAT. I think I didn't do Kaplan. I did another one. I have to remember the name. And it was excellent. It was about $2,000, like I said, so it's definitely an investment. But yeah, that's what I would definitely say. Take the class, take it seriously, and do as many LSATs as you can.
Yeah, I second everything Iman said, and I would say in addition to that, just remember what your particular studying style is. Like if you are a visual learner, like use that. If you're a person that needs like notepads or flashcards, like use that, incorporate that within your studying. I remember like back then, like there were like the Power Score Bibles. I found those like really helpful. So if they're still around, I'm pretty sure like, they're maintaining that type of reputation. So I highly recommend them.
I swear by the Bibles, they
There
were
you go.
excellent.
See?
I don't remember anything. I remember that. So
Yeah, I definitely remember the Bibles.
Any other advice? The other thing I would say as well, if you are, set aside the time to study, because I know there are some of my friends who were trying to study like the last year or the last semester of undergrad, and they were involved in a lot of different activities. And I feel like the LSAT is one of those things, like you need time to study for it and focused on it. For me, I took 2 years off in between undergrad and law school. And one of the years I just literally focused on studying on the LSAT. I had a set time from this hour to this hour I will study. And like Iman said, I also took a class. The first time I took a class, it didn't work out. The second time I was just like, okay, I have the materials and I know my study style. And that's the other thing too, like you have to know your study style. I'm not really someone who really learn in the classroom. I tend to learn on my own by processing stuff. Like for me, just a teacher teaching doesn't really teach me much. So I had to have the materials in myself. So I took the class, but it wasn't as beneficial to me. So I had to have time to process the material, do as many exams as possible. And then the second time around, I did well. And I don't know. I took it 2 times. Iman told you she took it 2 times. I don't know if the rest of you guys, how many times did you take the LSAT? I'm sorry, Christian, how many times you said?
I only took it once.
Once, okay. Call twice.
I took it once. It's
Okay.
only because I despise taking tests, and I just didn't want to take it another time.
Right.
But
So
I'll add one thing. Sorry, Barbara. I'll say I have a big family, and when I was studying for the LSAT, what I had to learn was that I had to separate myself from everything. And so even though I wasn't in school at that time, I had to basically remove myself from my house every day to go to the local. I think I went to the whatever college was in Queens, and just use my CUNY ID from way back and studied there. So if that's what you have to do, do it. Like separate yourself from all the noise.
I mean, I asked that question also to take some of the pressure off. I know some people feel ashamed, like, oh my God, I had to take it twice, but it's fine if you take it the first time and you feel like, oh, I didn't do so well, I'll try again. That's fine. And then also my dear friend who I live with in law school actually just texted me, and she was like, also ask for discounts in your current school, like in your colleges. They might have programs or discounts that for the different study programs for the LSAT. They might have any discount for you, so look into that as well. I know it's 8:04, and I know we had some questions in the group chat, but is there any additional questions? I'm gonna try to look to see, are there any questions for the panelists that we haven't answered?
There is a question right here in the Q&A box.
Okay. I'm not sure if I missed it.
It says, what out of the box courses would you recommend for students interested in law school for them to take now? I'm assuming in college, that would be good for them for law school.
I think like any philosophy classes, like anything with like reasoning, I think that really helps like with the LSAT. So I would say like outside of the box, if I could think of any.
This is not outside of the box, but I definitely feel like my communication courses really helped right now as a litigator. Take some public speaking classes, having to think on your feet, even if you're not a litigator, like being a transactional attorney, like you're really having to think on your feet about certain matters or address certain clients' concerns. It's really a skill that I think is valuable as an attorney. So look into some of the communication courses that they may have, like interpersonal, communication classes, as well as public speaking as well.
I took acting class in college out of nowhere. I think I just wanted to fill another elective, not because I actually wanted to or sought it. And I think it really helped. Acting class, they just throw you out there and you're just acting, for the most part, acting stupid in front of the whole class without any fear or embarrassment. And it basically just helps you through all those moments where you might find yourself in court and you think I might be nervous, but you're basically cured from that, I guess. So I would definitely recommend acting class.
I would say that I know that when I was in college, I took at least one research paper-based course, and it's pretty much painting with a broad brush. There, at least when I was at University of Florida, there were a few of those classes where it's paper-based, and really the most part of the grade is just on this final term paper. And kind of going back to what Imam was saying, it's a completely different type of research, but it gives you a little bit of an idea of how it feels to go ahead and just have to write and have everything before you for your final grade. A lot of the law school exams are you get a prompt and you have to go in and you got to spot the spot the issues and analyze them, and it's all essay based or majority essay based. And even though it's not a perfect comparison in college, if you can find a class that's research paper based and you have to show your merit and get your grade based on just a paper that you wrote, I think that can serve to benefit you.
Mhm. I'll say this though. I know that at least for me, the only reason why I was a political science major is because I asked someone, "Hey, I want to be a lawyer. Like, what's the best major?" And they said, "Oh, political science." And I will say this, I wish I did what Iman did. It just did a completely different major that gave me a different set of skills aside from, political science major where you can't use it for anything else. And I think it's a political science major is good. Like it does help with critical thinking, but if you're not really interested in political science and you're only doing it because you want to go to law school, you still have time to explore other majors. Like if you have other interests or other skills that you would like to have, explore those majors. Don't just stick to political science because honestly, law school doesn't really care about your major. You can be any major and apply to law school and do fine. Are there any other questions that I missed in a group chat? Okay. Sorry, did I hear someone? Okay, so I think that is all. Last, I would like to end on a positive note. Can each of you state how has becoming an attorney benefited you, your family, and your community?
One thing I would say it's very important for my community and me as well. It's just the idea of representation. I know as a Black male attorney, there's not many of us. I think we represent maybe less than 5% of the entire field. I know around the time when I was studying for the bar exam, I had a friend come up to me and he was like, "Man, I can't wait for you to pass the bar exam so I could say that I actually know somebody who's an attorney." And so I know like representation definitely is important. And also in my community, there are a lot of people that come to me for all types of advice, even in legal areas that I'm not practicing in. And so, it's challenging, but at least, sometimes I am able to give them an answer that helps. Or if I don't have an answer, I'm able to direct them to, a place where they can go. And so just being like a resource for the community, I think that's very helpful and impactful. I think also having the title too, I would say, it just gives you like a great sense of self. I know like now I'm my biggest advocate, and having the title of attorney behind that, it just gives you that sense of belief that there's nothing that you shouldn't ask for or that you can't ask for. And I think just having that type of like mentality really helps you in a lot of different places and areas. So I would say those are my three.
Thank you. Anyone else? I would say, oh, Iman, I see you unmuted yourself.
Yeah, I definitely echo everything Carl said, just that fulfillment. Another thing that I would add is just, I think it's very fulfilling when you set a goal and achieve it. And I think law school was one of those big, long-term goals that I had for myself. Another thing is I really do enjoy what I do. I do have very long days, but I could generally say that I do enjoy tax law. So I do like what I do. And I think that's so fulfilling to be able to go to work and do the type of work that you could be proud of. Another thing I will say is law school, especially law school and my current job, I'm meeting really good people that I enjoy to work with. And I think like that is probably one of the best parts for me. Some of the friends I have from law school, I still keep in touch with, like Barb, Jenny, you know what I mean? Like me and Barb talk almost like every few weeks, if not like every other week. And I think you can't put a price on that. So those are the two things for me, just complete fulfillment in what I do and the great people that came out of this process.
I think for me, in addition to what Colin and Iman said, I think it's knowing that I can be a source of help and you know a source of information, even if I don't know something myself, I know how to get it and I know how to find it. And if I don't want to take the time to find it, I know someone to call to get the information from. And I think, as Carl was saying, that's big for someone like me, who is the first lawyer in my entire family. And I think the amount of protection you think you provide your family members, the members of your community, by just telling them that maybe what you think you're doing that's legal is not legal, that they wouldn't know otherwise if you had not told them. You sort of provide them with some level of protection that they would not otherwise have. And also you give them a sense of confidence in going about their day-to-day, knowing that there's somebody there who's always gonna have their back. And I think that's the big part of it for me, is the fact that everyone I know, everyone I love is forever gonna have me to protect them from things that they wouldn't even know could hurt them. And I think that's big for me.
For me, I would say that particularly in the field in which I am in, I deal with a lot of individuals who are not familiar with the criminal justice system. You know, being, and on both ends, right? Although I'm the prosecutor, I represent the state, but I also advocate on the interests of victims. But then also there are defendants on the other end that I also have to take into consideration when I evaluate a case. Being able to be the voice in the room to state, you know, I understand that he committed the crime, but look at his background. Let's look at his environment, where he came from, what history, what trauma that might have caused or led him to commit this crime. The same thing for the victims in my cases, understanding truly what is it that they would like to see happen in the case, and being able to educate them. You know, I understand that this is what you would like to see, but this is what we can accomplish in this case. And this is what justice may look like, and helping them, you know, feel some sort of justice, some sort of, you know, voice, like someone that's there that actually cares about their concerns and is willing to advocate and validate their feelings. And being able to validate someone's feeling and their most vulnerable moment, I think, is the most rewarding thing for me as an assistant district attorney. And so that is all I have tonight. Is there anything else that I am missing? Carisha, is there anything that, you know, I think I should address on the panel?
No, I think this was great. Thank you to each and every one of you today for giving such great insight and sharing with our students all the different opportunities that they have available to them to go to law school. So thank you, each and every one of you, for coming in today.
Thank you very much for having us. And I would like to personally thank Christian, Naftali, Carl, and Iman for joining me tonight. I know all of you are very busy, but I appreciate you all. Thank you so much. And I feel free to reach out to me if there's any questions, anyone that attended this panel, or if you would like for me to ask any questions of our panelists, I will be sure to share your questions with them and provide an answer at a later time. Thank you very much, everyone.
Once again, thank you guys. Thank you all of the panelists that came today. Thank you so much for participating, for all the insightful information. I've taken notes. I've taken a whole bunch. So thank you guys so much. We hope to see you all tomorrow at the Imagine 2021 day session with Adam Shear at 10 a.m. See the link in the chat. And once again, thank you guys so much and have a great evening.
Have a good evening, everybody.
Stay safe.